Hello, everybody. Hello, Mary. Thanks for joining us this morning. Oh, I guess it's afternoon already.
Goes quickly.
Yes, it does. And I guess it depends on where in the world you are listening to us, because we know people listen everywhere and in all different time zones. So happy whatever it is, whatever time you are, where you are.
Exactly. And thanks, Juliette. It's always good to be here. It's always good to chat about my favorite topics, astrology in Egypt. So
Yes.
we'll be getting right into that today.
Yeah, we've got a full moon coming up on Friday, right?
Yes, we do. We have a full moon in Capricorn. And so right before the full moon, 24 hours before, the sun moves into the sign of Cancer. So that polarity of Cancer Capricorn is all about emotions. It's all about feeling vulnerable with the Cancerian sun, and then how to be in your own power, because Capricorn's all about standing your ground. It's an earth sign. It's like, how do I take my place in the world? How do I do what I need to do and gain the respect and be my own inner authority? All that good stuff that goes along with Capricorn and making headway in the 3D world. For those of us that are still making headway in the 3D world. And the Cancer side of that is the feminine. It's the compassionate, loving, empathetic, nurturing, self-healing part of ourselves. That's what a lot of people talk about, your inner child. That's a very Cancerian feeling. And so this full moon is going to bring all that up. So people who have, this could be a time where people want to hunker down and stay home and be with families and just kind of do things with the kids or do things around the house. Or it could be if you have a little bit more of the dysfunctional side of family emotions and feelings, there may be a little bit of that going on, because remember, the full moon brings things to a peak. It's like a catharsis point. So we'll be talking about that a lot, or I will be talking about that a lot in my newsletter, which will be going out by Friday. And how this fits in with what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the goddess Isis, who is very much represented by the sign of Cancer, because Isis is the great compassionate mother goddess of ancient Egypt. And she's the nurturer. She has her baby son Horus. We see her in every temple. We see her in every tomb. She's the primal, I would say probably the main goddess that most people know about from ancient Egypt, Isis. And she brings to us the sense of peace, the sense of inner harmony, and how our emotions can go in an ebb and flow. But basically, it's all about forgiving yourself and forgiving other people. It's like that compassionate side of the Cancerian sign. And so she's the loving mother, but there's a side to her. She's also called the mistress of magic. Now, we get into a lot of that when we're traveling in Egypt and visiting her temples. And as the mistress of magic, she works with the god Thoth. And a lot of people are familiar with the god Thoth. And if you're not, he's the god of learning. And he wrote the Emerald Tablets and gave to Egypt these lessons on how to live. And a lot of it is considered by people who came later magical formulas and ways to deal with things on a very magical level where you're tapping into unseen forces. How that works with Isis, because they were colleagues. Isis and Thoth were the ones, along with Isis's sister Nephthys, who resurrected the god Osiris when he had been killed, murdered. And so they bring him back to life through these magical spells and incantations. And so Isis therefore becomes the goddess who not only is compassionate and nurturing and loving because she resuscitates her dead husband, but also because of this idea of magic and words of power. So some of the things about Isis that are very important to know is that whenever people say to me, Mary, what's Egyptian magic? I want to learn spells. I want to do spells. Well, all spells is your emotional feeling put behind powerful words. And so you could use mantras, you could use affirmations, you could use anything to create a spell. It's all about your intention. And so where Isis comes in, and we see a lot of this written on the walls of Philae Temple, Dendera Temple, and Abydos Temple, or we will be spending a lot of time, is she's giving you the formulas. She's giving you the go ahead, the codes as to how to use these. And your intention is everything. Intention and heart put behind the words with her and Thoth. It's like you can create magic. So if people are wondering about manifestation, if they're wondering about, well, you know, I'm kind of in the stuck place, what do I need to do? There's a lot about watching your words and really using your words in a constructive way, using them with intention, putting your feelings behind them, and then using them to reconstruct your reality. Okay, so words are very, very important. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about a lot, even in astrology, because we want to get away from the negative talk. We want to get away from even toxic people, because sometimes people that we're around, we're trying to be, you know, very helpful and very good and compassionate and forgiving to everyone. And suddenly you're in someone's space and they're just like raging, or they're just really negative, or anything you try to say to kind of bring them up or change their mood, they're like, no. You know, it's like a real naysayer type energy. And that can have an effect on you, especially during this full moon in Cancer, when most people can be very vulnerable or very sensitive on an emotional level. I'm sorry, the full moon in Capricorn, but it brings up that Cancerian side, which is all about dealing with emotions and dealing with our inner child. So knowing who you're around, being discerning with people, and using your voice to express yourself. It's like if you've been interested in using your voice for healing, for coaching people, to inspire others, even to work with your own level of speaking and writing. It's really important to choose your words. And this is about being discerning, because Isis also has this idea of discrimination. It's like not everything is for everyone. Remember, Isis is the goddess who wears the veils. She cloaks the mysteries. So some things are not for the profane. They're not for people who don't respect it. So it's not about converting anyone to what you believe in, or, you know, that could be anything. You know, some people are vegetarians, some people are not. Some people are Republicans, some people are Democrat. You know, there's different strokes for different folks. So what she's saying is you want to be compassionate to everyone and think about how you want to. And think about how your inner child needs to be loved, appreciated, and respected. So that Capricorn Cancer polarity is going to bring that up. Now, we work a lot with toning and sound. Sound healing is very important when we're in Egypt. So a lot of people that come on these trips like to do that. They like to do their own toning, or in certain places where we have private time, we do it as a group. But again, it sets the vibration. And so one of the things we like to do before we actually go into the temples is, as a group, set the vibration, set the tone, listen, get the tone of what the temple is going to be there to teach us and guide us through. And then after we go through the preliminary walkthrough of the temple, just to see where everything is and what's it about, it's nice to have time on your own, time where you can actually go back and listen to what this temple has to say to you. And I'm sure, Julietta, you've had experiences with that.
Well, and I think that is something that is so important, is being able to take the time in these temples and not rush through. And you know, I always say, for someone who has desire to connect with frequency and vibration, and receiving messages and guidance, you know, from other realms, it's so much easier to do in Egypt compared to here. Like, the vibration over there is just so different than what it is here. And, you know, even just last week, I was sharing my experience of Egypt with someone, and they said to me, "Oh my God, I wish I had your experience." You know, he said, "Since I was a child, Egypt called to me, and I went in 2011. And it was just so disappointing. And I did not have any of these mystical experiences that you had. And I said, well, you went with the wrong tour guide. And, I think, yes, there are people out there that are just interested in running and seeing the sites and say they've been there and I've seen it, I've done it. But I think most of us that Egypt calls to us, it is more because of those mystical, magical calls of Egypt. And, yes, it's not about rushing through the temples. Like, you need to go in there and sit and spend time and feel the energy and listen and look. And, messages will come then. And then, I said every night before I went to bed, I sit and meditate and the messages just come in. And, Isis very clearly came into me on that first trip to Egypt back in 2017. But you have to get quiet and listen. But the energy of Egypt helps support all of that. So even if you think that you're not very psychic or tuned in, bringing yourself to Egypt changes your vibration so that you are more easily able to tune into all of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because what we're doing is we're bringing our physical bodies to Egypt. Because it's not like people can't get initiation experiences or spiritual experiences at home. I mean, you can in your meditations. That's why we do meditations. But in Egypt, it's like you're plugging into the battery. It's like you're going to the source of it. And your body operates like a tuning fork there. That's why sound is so important. And so when you walk into these spaces that were designed for sound and to elevate the human body, we call it ascension. The Egyptians were talking about that thousands, tens of thousands of years ago, where you're elevating the human condition. And so when you elevate that human condition, your spinal cord's vibrating differently. In Egypt, we talk about the Jed pillar at Abydos, because that Jed pillar is the stabilization of the body. It's your chakra system. It's your point of reference as you go up through the Kundalini. And so they use that Jed pillar as a symbol. And that symbol, interestingly enough, is the symbol for Capricorn in Egypt. We're using the Jed pillar. We've got different correlations. Egyptian astrology was not exactly the same as what we practice today. But the idea is that we're using these symbols that they gave us to work with ourselves. It's not like those hieroglyphs aren't just dead things painted on a wall. It's like if you have the right codes to go in there, they work with you. They're still vibrating the same way they vibrated 10,000 years ago, let's say. We're going to have private time at the Sphinx. When you stand in front of the Sphinx that was put there probably back during the time of Atlantis, then you get that information. Those codes open up. And another thing that, I'm an astrologer, so I like to plan these trips around certain things that have some astrological significance. And as soon as we get to Egypt, at the beginning of our tour, we're at the Giza Plateau for the private time at the Sphinx and viewing the pyramids and all that good stuff. It's a full moon. So we'll be in Egypt at a full moon, looking over it's like the whole Giza Plateau, the Sphinx. I mean, I just get tingles up my spine thinking about it, because I've been there during full moons and I know what it feels like, how amazing it is. So you go in with the intention. Your body's going to operate as the tuning fork. Your body's going to be open to this elevation ascension process. Your chakras are going to be moving and bringing in what they need to bring in. We'll be doing some work where you get to release what you need to release. So there's a clear channel there. So that spinal cord operates as a clear channel. And you will, especially starting at the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx on a full moon, you will be receiving information that may not be like psychic. You may not be hearing things or seeing things, but you'll be feeling. You're going to tune into your body as we move through this. And so your body may be picking up cues, or you may be perceptually having a lot of stimuli, because there's a lot of sights and sounds and colors in Egypt that you've never been exposed to before. But this idea is that, okay, I'm here because I'm in my own ascension process. And yes, I found a group that matches my resonance. Otherwise, I wouldn't be with them. And we're going to move through Egypt on a group collective level, but we're also doing it on a personal level. So whatever you bring to the table expands and your awareness blossoms like the lotus. And so we'll be talking a lot about that in Egypt. And why is the lotus, whether it's Indian, Vedic, Tibetan, ancient Egyptian, why is the lotus the symbol for the crown chakra? Well, you're going to be operating on the frequency of why that is. So when you come back, you may not be necessarily answer it in language, but you'll feel it. You'll know what that felt like by the time you come back from Egypt. Because this Blue Lotus retreat, we will be working specifically hands-on with the energy of the Egyptian Blue Lotus, which, hasn't been done for centuries, millennia, whatever. So this is very, very special group. It's a very special time to be in Egypt. The last group that I had there, it was kind of like we were the unofficial peacekeeping mission because it was last November, and it was right after last year, right after October situation in Israel. And the thing about Egypt was that Egypt was perfectly safe. There was no problems. We were welcomed. It was called the coming home trip. We were welcomed as if we were coming home. They were our family, and they were welcoming us home. Whether it's the temples that are welcoming you or the people. I've been in Egypt for over 30 years now. I have a lot of friends there and people that know me, and then they know you, and then they become your friends, and so on. And it's kind of like that, seventh degree of separation or attraction, whichever way you're looking at it. It's like you will attract that good energy in Egypt that's been sown over the past, decades with the people that I've been going with. And some of these people like Julietta will be back again, and so on and so forth, and sowing their own seeds with different groups of people that they may be doing things with in all different parts of the world. So it's like what you get in Egypt goes home with you, and then you spread it around, that vibration. It's just beautiful. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. It's like Egypt never stops. I'm going to say 2 or 3 things about the special temples that we're going to visit, and then we're going to be doing a little meditation to close with Isis. And the important thing to remember, in case I don't get a chance, or Julietta doesn't have a chance to say later, is don't wait. If you're thinking about this, get in contact with us right away, because especially if you want a single room, single rooms get harder and harder to get as the registration process gets farther into it. So registration now is open. Everything's available, and we're at the best 5-star.
Yeah. The website is right here on the bottom of the screen. It's votgpodcast.com. If you go on there and click on the retreats, find the Egypt Blue Lotus retreat, and there's an intake form there to fill out, and that will let us know that you're interested, and then we will reach out to you and get the ball rolling.
Yes. And if you're really interested, just contact us right away and say, I want to go, because as I said, this is going to ramp up, and Egypt's going to be really crowded in November. There's a lot of tourists who are coming because they held off last year, and there's also the possibility that the Grand Egyptian Museum will officially be open. It's open for us. We go in and do our tour there, but it hasn't had the grand opening yet. So there will be more people coming in November. So we want to make sure that we have all of our people accommodated. One of my favorite temples, and one of the things I like to do on these more retreat-like trips, rather than doing the 10 days and 50 sites kind of tour, is that the spiritual tour moves slower, because as I said, we're taking in the ambiance and the energy and resonating with certain temples. So certain temples may really feel good to you, and maybe other ones it's like, oh yeah, that's great, it's beautiful, but it's not my favorite. Dendera Temple is one of my favorites in all of Egypt, and so we spend a lot of time there, at least 2 or 3, 4 hours maybe. And Dendera is the temple of Hathor, the goddess of love and beauty and all things feminine. But there's also a sister temple to Isis at Dendera. And Isis is connected with the star Sirius because they say the star Sirius is the birthplace of Isis. And so the star Sirius was very important in ancient Egypt because it gave them the rising of the Nile. When the star Sirius rose, so did the Nile. And that meant that the land would be fertile and they could grow their crops and everybody had a good year. And Egypt would be the breadbasket of that whole area of the Middle East and Africa. So now Isis has taken her place as the sister in Dendera, so that when it's the middle to the end of July during the old Egyptian calendar that the star Sirius rose, and they built the chapel to Isis facing the rising of the star Sirius. So it's a very aligned astrologically, an alignment that has a lot to do with the stars. It has a lot to do with what the energy is all about there. And so we'll talk a lot about that on site, but just know that there's that Isis energy is very present at Dendera, as well as the Hathor energy. And today, interestingly enough, is day 13 of the feast days of Hathor, when they celebrated the sacred marriage of Hathor and Horus. And they did a lot of dancing and jubilation and drinking of beer and singing and all of that, because it celebrated the fertility of the land. So these temples over points in time that spanned 5,000 years were aligned, maybe moved a little bit, just a hair's breadth, so that they could actually still bring in that alignment of starlight or sunlight or whatever it is that the temple was picking up to be able to transmit, receive and transmit. That's what it's all about there. And so we'll be talking a lot about that and how you resonate with that. And also Dendera as the seat of the mysteries of the Blue Lotus. So that's all good stuff to come. And then finally, we're at Abydos. And that is the pristine mystery school of Isis and Osiris. So there's a lot to do. And don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. Now, are we ready for the meditation, Julietta?
We are ready for the meditation. I'm going to bring up a little Isis there for everyone.
Oh, beautiful. Gorgeous. Okay. Now, for this full moon, you can also use this meditation during the full moon. Allow Isis to give you your personal words of power. This is the gift to you on this full moon. Now, imagine the beautiful winged goddess Isis in her brilliant blue robe of initiation, standing before you. In her right hand, she holds a cartouche. The cartouche is a long stone tablet inlaid with precious stones and sacred symbols. These symbols are the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt. Isis motions for you to reach out and touch the tablet, which you do. Now the cartouche transforms into pure, vibrating energy, pulsating with life. New symbols seem to appear on it as you hold it, and they form into a sacred word or a name. And as you focus your eyes on this glowing cartouche, Isis leans towards you and whispers this sacred word or name to you. This is her gift of healing sound and also protects you. Feel her unconditional love, wisdom, and peace travel through your body on the vibration of these sounds. And you hear her whisper, the body is your temple, and sound is the key. So let those sounds vibrate through you, resonate with you, and take with them what you need. And when you are ready, open your eyes and return to this time and space.
That was wonderful.
Get those words of power going.
Yep.
It's all about that, how to stand in your own power and be a compassionate being at the same time. Big job, but we get another chance because there's 2 full moons in Capricorn in the month coming up. So this one and at the very end of the month. So we'll get to work on this again. We have a full month to kind of get it going, get it percolating.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mary, for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share all your wonderful knowledge and insight about Egypt. And I'm just going to reiterate again, if you're interested, reach out to Mary or I to find out how you can join us in Egypt. And you can also go to votgpodcast.com and find all the details about this retreat on there. And we are happy to answer any questions you have. This retreat is going to be nothing short of magical. So if Egypt is calling to you at all, like now is the time for you to go. Declare it to the universe that you're going to be on this trip with us, and the universe will support you and make it happen.
And so it is. Thank you, Julietta. Thank you, everybody. See you in Egypt.
Yes, see you in Egypt.